Well, without too much more fanfare, let's jump into episode 3 of AD and the MC. Welcome to you and welcome to Mark, Angry Dad Orville.
Good to see you, sure.
Have you had a week have you been pranked by your bastard sons again?
I did last week, the little bastards.
Yeah?
Yeah. Tore my thigh.
Tore your thigh?
Tore my thigh.
Okay. They didn't tear it?
They didn't tear it, no, but this body doesn't move as quick as it used to. Not to say that it ever did move quickly. No. I can't trust anyone these days. We had a meeting with this marketing company we're working with Banter.
Yeah.
It was outside at a cafe, so just normal catch-up chat. Some guy come and asked me if I could give him a smoke, and I don't smoke, so I just said to him politely, I don't smoke. And as my phone is sitting right here now, prick stole my phone.
So he runs off with it?
Yeah, he took off. So I attempted to chase him. Hurt my right hip, my right knee, my right hamstring, and then my left thigh went. So I've been
in the one movement, or
pretty much within 3 steps.
Jesus.
So I've pretty much been out of action. Ice, the old rest, ice, whatever it is, elevation and compression. Yeah, 100%. I won't play this week.
So you're out.
Mate, you know what? Your phone is an extension of your hand. So when you lose your phone, it's like you've lost your arm. So I had to chase a prick, mind you. Again, 4 steps I think I got, and I did it. So I was embarrassing.
It wasn't a real.
No, it wasn't real. So I actually abused Mitchell. Yeah. Said you were shit scared. Why didn't you chase him and catch him? Because I can't. What am I going to ring the cops? I can't ring the cops.
I can understand why you'd have trust issues. Because people often ask me, does Angry Dad know what's coming? You can know to an extent that something potentially could happen.
100%.
But you can let your guard down.
Absolutely. Well, my guard was totally down. Again, we had representatives from Concept Marketing who were helping us with it. Didn't cross my mind.
Next thing you know.
Even when the guy walks up to you, didn't cross my mind. Sorry, mate, don't smoke. Bang, turn around, grabs him a phone. Away he goes.
I assume that made you doubly angry because not only were you just done by the pricks, but you hurt yourself.
I hurt myself, absolutely. And you know what? Mitchell eventually went because I screamed at him and said, "Go and catch him," or whatever, and try and catch him.
Didn't you say, "I'd call the cops, but I don't have my phone"?
What am I going to do? But I was in pain. I was embarrassed as shit. People looking through the cafe window wondering someone's just been actually held up, have they, or whatever. It was embarrassing.
Big bastards had a heart attack.
You know what happened? They got him. So great. I threw down my book. I was ready to actually fair dinkum tear shreds off him. And then Mitch said, "This is my mate, whoever it is." I wouldn't know him if he stood up me porridge. Yeah. But fair dinkum. No, I can't trust anyone, sure. So, yes. I trust you.
Yes, thanks, mate.
Please. Okay, I don't even need to say.
Yeah, at this point, we're all good.
Absolutely, I don't even need to say.
Hey, is it me though? I don't know. I find myself looking through the news and I find that the world at the moment seems incredibly negative. Is that fair?
You know what? I think it's doom and gloom, really. Now, I don't know if that's deliberate in terms of that focus, but there's all these, what about this poor 90-year-old couple, murder-suicide? You got the Rutevsky case.
The girl stabbed in the apartment at the party. Yeah, the Rutevsky, that's the new kind of, the attention is on this case.
It is. And you know what? There's no winners in it, Shura. You've got a young girl who's lost their mum, right? She's got a dad that's being tried for murder. Yep. So who knows where that's going to go? They're talking of potentially manslaughter, change. Doesn't matter what the end result is. She doesn't have her mum back. Yep. And it's just sad. It's pressurous society. Again, if you believe everything you read, they were having financial issues, out of business, this, that and the other. Geez, it makes people make some silly decisions, doesn't it? And I feel extremely sad for them. And they're one of many cases, right? They're one of many. But I think, again, that's why I turn off the news now. Everything's doom and gloom. Where there's a bit of happiness.
But just on that, as a parent, okay, looking objectively on the outside, it's amazing to think the daughter, she's come to her dad's defence, even though all the evidence is pointing to the fact that he's involved. You've got kids and you've got a family. I'm not saying you're obviously not someone who's implicated in a murder, but
not yet.
Do you understand?
Not yet. It might be a double.
That would be your own sons. That's a different thing. But do you understand that mindset? It's family first. What do you think this girl's?
I feel extremely sorry for her because she's no doubt being pulled from pillar to post, right? I don't know what sort of conversation she's had with her dad, but I'm tipping she's had numerous. So she's got to trust and believe him, regardless of what level of detail they've gone into. That poor girl is going to be mentally scarred for the rest of her life, regardless. It's a terrible, terrible situation.
It seems like the family unit at the moment, if you read the news, is pretty disturbed. There's a lot going on in this kind of family world. I'm raising an 18-month-old son, and I don't know how to feel about the world that he's coming into.
Do you know what? I don't envy you, to be honest, because he's 18 months, right? So he's very, very young. But where's it all going to end up?
Did you, you've raised 3 children, the oldest of whom is what?
Dylan's 25. 25, yeah.
So let's talk 25 years ago. So that's what, 19...
He was born 93.
93. What were your fears for him when you were bringing up a son at that age? He's just come into the world. I actually had a really interesting conversation today with a friend about this, and that he read this amazing quote by someone saying that the love of a child is not so much about love like you love Sharon, for example, which is based on attraction and intellect and that communication. The love of your child is actually based a little bit around fear. Think about how much fear comes into your world. When you have a child, all you think about is, have they died overnight? Are they going to fall over and hurt themselves? Are they going to get hit by all that stuff?
100%. It's all about protection.
What was the fear in 1993? Because it's a different world now.
Completely different. We still trusted society back then. The kids could play at the front, they could ride their bike, they could do all of that because the internet hadn't taken over at that point. It was on its way in terms of PlayStations and all that sort of shit, but I didn't have a lot of fear. For me, like, if anything worried me about my kids, it was about just being able to provide for them, because I eat a lot, and if there wasn't a lot of food in the fridge, then poor kid was going to go starving. No, seriously, there wasn't a lot. As a dad, as the parent, you had to provide. So you wanted to have a good job with a steady income so you could actually give your kids as much as you can. Whether that's education, whether it's holidays or whatever, that was the extent of it. We weren't at that point worrying about whether they'd actually get molested when on a walk to the shop, or whether they'd get kidnapped, or whether they get bashed.
Or online who's a man, who's a 70-year-old man, and would you leave your door unlocked back then? Do you reckon, or were you still?
Yeah, no, absolutely we did, 100%. Again, it was all about trust. These days, you can't trust any bastard.
Not even your own sons.
Well, you can't. There you go. You cannot trust any bastard. And again, I don't envy you bringing young kids into this world. It's not as if it's not all manageable, but you've just got more things you need to be aware of that you have to look out for.
But I'm also scared in terms of what developments will happen. I mean, he's only 18 months old. In 10 years, will social media change? There'll be new ways to get in touch. There's so much to be fearful of. I feel like back then it was a very carefree. Even when I was growing up, when you were bringing up those...
When I was growing up, mate, my mum and dad used to party. They'd drink piss with the neighbours. We would actually just disappear for 4, 5, 6 hours. We'd go on a bike ride. Yeah. We'd go fishing. We'd go down the pool. We'd do whatever we wanted to. And that wasn't because our mum and dad actually didn't care about us, because of course we'd check in at different times, whatever. It was just, that's what society was like. Yeah. And we had the best fun, And they had none of that shit to worry about. None of it. Look, parents these days bringing young kids into the world, they've got a hell of a lot more they've got to worry about than what we've had to.
I can't even believe it. It even shocks me when I hear about suicide of children under the age of 10. Like, the idea that it was even possible as a kid, I don't think it even came into our minds that was possible nowadays. Maybe it's more talked about, and that's certainly something.
No, it's nothing to do with whether it's talked about. It's the pressure on kids, mate. Their brain is just too preoccupied with what's going on in the world. Yeah. And it puts pressure and stress on kids. And kids cope with things differently. Yeah. And, it feeds into that whole bullying side of things, right? And I've got a massive opinion on that, because you wouldn't get this, but, Hannah was bullied all through high school.
Yeah, right.
Now, she's a really strong individual, so she coped with it. And where we were lucky as parents, she talked to us about it, right? We didn't ever actually try and intervene as much as I wanted to, right? Because I knew what was going on. We let her manage the whole thing herself. And we were lucky. Some kids don't talk about it to their parents. And they don't carry a sign around, Shura, saying, I'm actually being bullied and I'm at wit's end and I don't know what to do. That's the worry.
I know. And that's the thing. Look, my wife, she might not like me talking about this, but she was bullied at school as well. In fact, she changed schools, and she's the loveliest person you've ever met. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, it can happen. I think, thankfully, she spoke to her parents and they were able to work out the situation. But the idea that, it was prevalent back then. Now the pressures, like, you're right, the social pressures and all that sort of stuff.
Ridiculous.
Have changed everything. So maybe in the next few weeks, we'll delve into that a bit more.
Do you know what I reckon? The only advice I would give you as someone who's new to parenting is, encourage your kids to have all their mates at your house. Yeah. You can sort the shit from the clay, right? I only ever kicked one kid out of our house. Right. So I reckon the kids did pretty well in that regard. Were all the kids perfect? No, but they had a little bit of rat bag in them, but nothing serious. That way you know what's going on. Yeah. And encourage your kids to talk to you as much as you can, because that's when they open up to you.
That's what actually my mother-in-law said that about. I think it's a great way to parent. I agree with that in terms of being in control of what your kids are doing.
Definitely.
But the biggest thing is who your children associate with. Would that be fair?
Of course, because if they turn left instead of turn right, then that's where some of the best kids you would ever meet get themselves into trouble. And that's whether it's to do with drugs, which are so friggin' prevalent in this day and age, that scares the shit out of me, right? Or crime, whatever it is. Peer pressure and having kids strong enough to be able to actually know when they're actually doing the wrong thing and come and talk to you about it, right? Because a lot of kids won't talk to their parents about it because they expect to get a smack on the ass and the consequence is too great. So they then just let everything go on, and what happens? You dig a deeper hole, you're in more shit.
Yeah.
That's the biggest advice I would give any parent, is encourage your kids to be open with you. And you know what? Because everything is solvable and salvageable.
Because if Hannah's, like, you've got both sons and daughters, and I grew up with two sisters, I feel like I was under the roof of, yes, you could certainly have that conversation. I had friends who were not allowed to do anything, and so they rebelled even further against that.
What I mean?
But with girls, particularly, whether it's bringing back a boy or whatever, were you protective? Like, they would pick my sisters up from the station, but I could walk home at night. Was that?
Yes, it is. It's true. It is. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. I think you're a little bit more concerned about daughters as opposed to sons. Yeah. That's just normal.
Look at the news, mate. You see.
I know. Yeah, and again, you can't trust any prick. Seriously, we've been extremely lucky that Hannah should have been a boy. Right. Seriously, she's got bigger balls than the boys in terms. She is a strong individual. Yeah, okay. And God help any boyfriend, husband, whatever that she's got, because he won't survive. He won't survive. So we are lucky.
Get through you first,
we are like, well, yeah, 100%, absolutely does.
But I reckon in the coming weeks, we might look at this. I reckon we might do some things on drugs and bringing up kids in that environment, and also the bullying thing, because that's obviously really, really big. But I want to move on to slightly happier things, because I saw this during the week and I thought of you, and just forgive me for saying this when I thought of you.
Oh my God. What is it now? I can imagine. And it's not a shit golfer.
To do with fast food.
Fast food. Why would you think of me when you think of fast food?
I don't know what made me think of it. It was all about fast food. Just the failures of fast food companies to kind of keep up with the times, or try and keep, at the end of the day, what they have done to make them popular, whether it's McDonald's, Hungry Jack's, Pizza Hut, KFC, whoever you are, Subway, what made you famous, what made you kind of popular was doing what you do, a Big Mac, a cheeseburger, or whatever. Trying to keep up with the times. And those create your tastes menus and things, they've failed. Millions of dollars lost.
You know what pisses me off about fun? And topical for me, you know why? Because Sharon goes away Sunday, so she's away for 5, 6, 7 days or whatever.
Okay, so that's 7.
I'm trying to work out my menu, whether it's Uber Eats or
Dirty Bird into the Subway.
No, but you know what pisses me off about the most of it? Fair dinkum. Have you seen the latest Subway ad actually? Not to bash Subway, because they're all the same. When will you ever get food that resembles what they actually portray on the tally in the ads? Have you seen the Texas burger? It's like you need a crane to carry it around. It's this big, it's stacked up this high. Yeah. Come on.
But Subway's big problem is they're relying on what they call the sandwich artist, by the way. That's the name of the job, sandwich artist, to create that for you as per the picture. Now, you've got John in Altona who makes it like this. You've got, Sanjeev in wherever, he's making it this way, and Alison's, everyone's doing it different.
No, I don't care if Matthew Butcher was making it. You would never make one in store anywhere near what looks like on the tally. And that's with every burger that is advertised on TV.
Would you send fast food back?
Oh, I actually had a rant at Red Rooster the other day.
I've sent back McDonald's.
Nah, you know what? Because I've eaten it half it's gone before I even get home anyway, especially if it's takeaway. No, what pisses, you order a meal, it's pretty simple, like a extra bloody up size, whatever it is.
£quarter pound a meal,
Don't forget the chips. So you've got to get 3 things, a burger, chips and your drink. You got your drink, you drive out the burgers, there, where's the chips? There's no chips. So I actually rang them the other day.
You rang who?
Red Rooster it was. And I said, I'm not coming back, right? Because I just can't be bothered. But how can you forget the chips? 2 things you had to do. Fair thing. I said, it pisses me off. Anyway.
There's not a lot to it.
But where's the ACCC in all this? That sounds really sort of harsh, but isn't it false and misleading? It'd be like putting Brad Pitt on Tinder and then I turn up. Don't you reckon?
Yes. That would be fair disappointment. I mean, you're a great guy, but it's not on the label.
Oh, yeah. So I've got a week of fast food takeaway coming.
Yeah. Now you played VFL, AFL for Collingwood back in the day. 9 games, I believe. 9 of the best.
7, but I'll say 9.
7, okay. 7 of the best. How many goals in 7 games?
7 goals, 7 games, 9 operations.
Okay, so a goal. That's pretty good goal a game. Anyway, so you know your footy. What are your thoughts on the state of the game? Do you like the way AFL is out?
No.
Do you watch the game and enjoy it?
No.
Okay. So do you like the idea of changing the rules?
No. Well, game adjustment it is. Haven't you heard that? They're adjusting. It's not a TV set. Seriously. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they're adjusting it. Do you know what surprises me out of all this sort of shit? If you look at something like soccer, I don't know the exact number, but like they've had 15, 20 rule changes in 100 years or thereabouts, whatever. If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
But it is broken, that's the point. You just said that. It's broken,
yes,
and that is exactly what everyone thinks.
But
it's
is
broken.
the introduction of more rules going to fix it? It won't, because you know what? This is the thing that stands out to me with all these rule changes. They bring them in, the umpies focus on them for a week or 2 or 5 or even a season, whatever. Look at if someone has possession, right? You touch them, go over the mark 50 metres. They don't adjudicate on that anymore. They've almost like they've abandoned it. Now the focus is on this poor player that happens to be in his zone. Now he's running to chase someone, and all of a sudden the umpy blows a whistle and says 50 metres. He goes, what the friggin' hell's going on?
When you were playing, when you first started playing, there was 2 on the bench or 3 on the bench, right?
He didn't want to sit on the bench, mate.
So now there's 4. Now, the game's changed. It's always evolving. I understand we throw in a lot of rules, and some of the rules are knee-jerk reactions, but this needs to happen because the game's in...
No. You know why?
The game's in disrepute.
Do you know what they should do? They should, 18 coaches, right? There's 16 of those 18 coaches played footy, yeah? Played footy when the game was a great spectacle. They know what made the great spectacle. Go back to doing that. It's analysis paralysis that has stuffed the game because they want to win every single criteria that impacts a game's outcome. Ultimately, it means someone scores more than the other to win the game, etc. That's what's wrecking the game. And until a coach has the balls to say, right, you guys, forwards, stay back, right?
But they're not going to do that, are they?
Why aren't they, though?
They want to win
Well,
games.
then they have to accept the fact that the rules will actually change, more will be introduced, and none of them want it. They'll be all pissed off.
What about if you put in 1 or 2 extra points, right, at the end of the game, in terms of on the ladder, if you kick over 100 points?
Nah, that's bullshit,
Why?
mate.
Because the point of it, no, but the fact of the matter is, you're saying the heyday of when football was great, scores were big. Gary Ablett's kicking 9 one week, Locker's kicking 12, the high scoring, great games.
Free-flowing position.
You don't get that now.
I know, but
so give incentives.
No. The incentives will just stuff it. It ends up being more like a business than a game. The thing is, at the moment, teams play into the other coach's hands. This zone to prevent people from scoring, right? The other teams to score. So the backmen push up, so the forwards follow them. What if those 4 forwards stay back? They've still got to get past that zone, I get that. They've got to be smart enough. I don't know, maybe a few barrels down the middle, because then the backman has to decide, shit, if it gets over the top and they've got 4 forwards there unmanned, what's going to happen then? The coaches just need to change their whole strategy. If they actually want to go back to a free-flowing, long-kicking, high-marking, high-scoring, 100-goal kicker a season game, that's all they've got to do.
Were you a full forward or centre forward?
I was the forward line.
You
From the forward line. No, I was full forward. I was a full forward.
Hate the game now.
Couldn't run out of the square.
Exactly right.
I couldn't.
Mate,
and I admit that, though. I admit
would love that to change.
I admit that. But at the same time, there was lots of forwards that were athletes back even in the late 80s. It was just that the game was played differently because the coaches viewed it very differently. Statistics at a quarter time, all we looked at, I reckon, was tackles, right? What would you had? It was stuff all. Right? Not that even
how many ciggies you want to smoke after the game.
Even tackles wasn't a good thing because you know what? Just because you had a lot of tackles, why doesn't that mean that's shit because you're second to the footy?
Look, we don't purport to be AFL experts here. And by the way, half our audience probably don't even care about AFL, but it's interesting.
Well, it's topical, mate. You know why? Because it's a huge industry these days, and this is a really sensitive thing for them, right? Yeah. There's lots of sensitive issues around, billion-dollar commercial industries. This is probably going to be the most topical and the most sort of heated and debated subject for a long, long time, I reckon. And no more rules. No more rule introduction or changes.
Let's see.
Stupid.
Hey, I've got a few people have contacted. We've asked you guys to get in touch with any questions you might have, anything you want us to talk about, contact@angrydad.com.au, or you can hit us up through the social channels, AD and the MC. I asked people on AD and the MC Instagram during the week any questions you might have for AD. This is a couple that I really liked. I got one.
Here we go.
Got one from Raf, who said, "How have you not murdered Mitchell yet?" Honest question.
Well, do you know there's an old saying, there's 2 people you don't hit, drunks and kids, because drunks sober up and kids grow up. And I've missed my opportunity with Mitch because now he's big and strong and he actually hurts when he hits you. He actually hurts when he hits you. Yeah. So, it's a fine line thing for me because, of course, he's my kid and I love him, but he's just a prick.
But also, you're lucky you haven't knee-jerk, elbowed or punched him in the reaction just to the prank.
Oh, I have. The video that you see, there's at different times there might be 4 or 5 different attempts by them. Right. But again, I've sort of been half savvy to the fact they're up to something. He collectively doesn't show that. You know what he tried to do to me once? I went to drive into the driveway And the bin was in the middle of the drive, and I just thought, lazy pricks, the garbos have left it there, whatever. So I got out of the car and went to get it out of the way so I could drive. He actually jumped up out and scared the shit out of me. I got the lid and I smashed it down his head. And I think I gave him a little clip at the same time.
He's lucky you did not see it and smash into it, mate.
He's just a prick, mate. He's a prick. He's a prick.
You raised him. All right, we've got one last question coming off the Instagram from Angus. Now, this is one, I want you to take your time to consider this answer because I think
How much time have I got?
We've got 15 minutes now. Your most hated politician and why? Now, before you get into it, look at the reaction. You can see this, if you're listening, you can see it. You hate politicians.
I do.
Feel like you hate them all.
I do.
So, who's at the top of that list?
The first one that comes to mind, right, is Daniel Andrews. And
Right.
you know why I say that? Is because at the end of the day, who cuts a cheque for someone for $1.2 billion for doing nothing?
Yeah.
And there's arguments about why, whatever. That should never happen. The state of our economy in terms of the health system and all that should never happen, mate.
It's because it's your money.
No, it is. And you know what? The thing is, what gave me the shits the most about is he was never actually... Well, his election promise was that we would get out of those contracts with no penalty. Then they tried to keep the penalty quiet, hush-hush. It was only through perseverance, through a whole range of different ways did it ever come out that it was over $1 billion. That's a disgrace, mate. That's a disgrace. Private sector would actually negotiate with those providers and say, righto, we don't want to go ahead with this project, but we want that credited on the next one because we're going to be doing 10 big projects in the next 20 years. Why couldn't they have done that? It's a credit, mate, put it in the bank. They paid them out, and those same companies will be bidding for the next ones. Why couldn't you have a credit? So he's one that makes me sick thinking about in terms of, that's our money.
Daniel Andrews. But you hate politicians because they make promises and they never deliver, that's right?
Of course, absolutely.
Or they make payments, they use your money like illegitimately in your...
And they carry on like clowns in a protected environment. It's called privilege, and our kids are supposed to actually learn from them. Come on, mate. More politicians get caught rot in the system than civilians.
You reckon?
100%. Well, I'm sort of exaggerating a bit. I told you a million times never to exaggerate.
Well, there you go. Well, we do know that you hate politicians. We're still going to attempt at some point to get you head-to-head with a politician.
He lives in Mulgrave. I know where he gets his haircut. I've seen him in there. I was going to introduce myself a few years ago, but I thought I'd better not.
That'd go down well.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get him on this, though.
Daniel, speak to me.
You go there, wouldn't you?
100%, absolutely.
Hey, we've got to go. There's so much more to get through. We're going to have to do this next week now.
Can't wait.
Don't forget to keep in touch. Contact at angrydad.com.au, all through our social media at AD and the MC, and you can contact us there or individually. As usual, mate, it's good to have you with us. You calmed down. You kept very calm there talking about politicians, I must say.
You reckon?
Yeah, you were pretty calm.
Yeah, because you know what, you asked me, that's on the spot. Like, I could sort of think of about 20 that I hate, but you then got to think about who comes to mind first and the reason why.
Yeah.
There's probably more I hate more than him, but I don't know. Jeff Kennett's the only one I've actually liked. And look, I swing in terms of who I vote for based on who I believe is going to do the best job for our immediate needs. And I know Kennett sold off assets and all that, but I think in terms of the person and what he stood for, he had some tough decisions to make and he didn't do everything right, but he's the one that probably I respect out of all of them. So there you go, Jeff.
Well, there you go. You just heard it here first, Markle. His vote can be bought.
I'm sure Jeff, he'll be so rapt to hear that.
He'll be bloody rapt, actually. All right, we're going to get out of here. We'll catch you next week.